That's the most on record. And both parties are being blamed, so maybe time for both parties to get along? Here to discuss Democratic strategist Roger Fisk and campus reform contributor Emma Meshell. Emma, seems like it's a call pox on both houses. Get your act together.
It is. And it's not surprising that Americans feel that the government is failing them because we just came from the largest government shutdown in American history as both sides were digging in their heels on immigration, which I will also say was the second most important issue listed on this poll. And with Maxine Waters digging in her heels and saying not $1 for the wall, and others saying that, Trump should not be going forward with his wall. It's clear to see that people care a lot about these issues, and it's important that Americans know adding more government to this equation is not going to make things any better for us.
Roger, it's a huge numbers for sure, but the trend that began way back in 2001. Again, the question is, should both parties try to find a way to fix this?
I think both parties have to. The interesting thing for me is like for the American people to be dissatisfied with government, they're pretty much looking in a mirror. The genesis of government is the American voter. It's not the other way around. So the chickens come home to roost in a sense. Everyone loves their congressman, but they want to change Congress. Everyone loves their kid's teacher, but they want to change education. So there's a disconnect between what the personal experiences are and what their kind of macro, more political positions are when they look at things like this in a national context.
Roger, what about the idea of the Democratic side of making government even larger, which in my mind would actually make it more vulnerable to these sort of, people being dissatisfied?
I think the Democratic Party, I actually wrote a piece about this a week ago, needs a new success narrative. And I think it would be very healthy for the Democratic Party to go through and look at ways to help entrepreneurs and small businesses. I think that kind of aspiration is something that's a hallmark of the Democratic side. I think we should embrace it, and we should figure out how to cultivate it and reinsert it as part of our national brand.
Emma, sort of what Roger said, there's an old saying, you get the government you deserve. Is this a reflection more on sort of America itself having a problem and the problems we have as a society, or is this the government specifically letting us down?
Well, this is an issue with the government, and citizens are going to get a chance to weigh in on this in 2020. But my hope here is that they don't have a disconnect, as Roger actually mentioned here, between the fact that the government is failing them and then moving forward and asking for more government with candidates that tend to favor socialist policies like the Green New Deal, like Medicare for All. These things increase the size of the government and only increases their potential to be let down by the government.
The current leadership, and it's, the problem, Roger, is that with current leadership, it feels like it's gotten so personal. The animosity, the vitriol is so outrageous. You wonder whatever happened. We hear about the classic relationships, whether it were Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill and things like that. Are those gone forever?
Hopefully not, but what I think is going on now is this country is awash in what I call recreational outrage. It's very easy for someone sitting on their couch to take a number of strident and angry stands on 10 or 15 issues without ever leaving their apartment, without ever interacting with a neighbor, without ever walking down the street and checking in on one of their neighbors to see if they need help or anything. Having positions has allowed us to get to a point where being right is more important than doing good. And I think we need to kind of get back to the idea that being a citizen is not just how we vote and not just the positions that we have, but what do we do with our hands and our feet to lift up our neighbors, lift up our communities, and lift up the country? That, to me, is the real test.
Emma, your thoughts on that?
Political division is something that is huge right now, and it even made an appearance this morning in Bernie Sanders' announcement for president for 2020, calling Donald Trump a misogynist and plenty of other things. And I think that that's only going to continue to add to this division that we're seeing in our country. I don't think the
American public likes the name calling at all. Thank you both very much. Appreciate it. New round of trade talks between the United States and China kicking off today in Washington. This as the clock counts down to next week's deadline. So